Hi, everybody. My name is Jay Fincham, and I am studying the master's program of clinical psychology at Bellevue University in Bellevue, Nebraska. And today I'm here to talk to you about the legal and ethical challenges regarding confidentiality within family counseling and how important that is and the difficulties that arise within that. Some of the issues with family counseling, of course, are that you are working with multiple clients instead of just one individual client. So that makes the process more complex in terms of confidentiality. Sometimes you will be working individually with clients and with the family, and so you have to be careful about crossing those lines when you're working in the family setting. The issues within the family unit can surface when discussing or revealing sensitive or personal information. When you have your clients talking, and if you're doing individual therapy with one, they may bring up something. Now, if you break that confidentiality at any point, the risks include the loss of trust and rapport with the client, with other clients because of word of mouth within the field as they learn about it, as well as any possible legal ramifications that could come from it. Confidentiality is the most significant and important point within our ethical world of psychology, that we need to keep that confidentiality so that we we're being honest and truthful and true to our clients. The NBCC Code of Ethics obtains tells us that we need to obtain informed consent from each individual included in the family therapy process and subsequent treatment plan. Not just one individual; it has to be each person that is involved in the family therapy. Even if you pull somebody in for a couple sessions, they still need to sign that informed consent. You need to explain the confidentiality and the limits that come with confidentiality, including mandatory reporting for instances of where there's a fear of hurting themselves or others, or other situations like that. And you need to do that in a way that each member clearly understands what you're telling them, and you need to answer any questions or concerns that any of the individuals involved may have. You only disclose information if there's consent from that client, or a legal or ethical obligation exists, as I said, that makes an exception for that disclosure to happen. Now, according to the ACA Code of Ethics, similar to those that I just stated, B.1.C states that as a therapist, you are to protect confidentiality at all times, regardless, except when legally required to disclose that information. B2A tells us that it provides therapists with the ethical requirement to disclose information to prevent serious and foreseeable harm to the individual or others, any others. If they say they're going to harm someone, you have that mandatory reporting that you must do. B4B explains in detail when an individual is considered a client, clarifying the obligations of both the client and the therapist. As far as confidentiality is extremely important, moving forward with the process of therapy or counseling and any subsequent treatment plan. Now, the Nebraska laws and statutes, there's several that regarding confidentiality in therapy, and it's governed by specific statutes that protect the privacy of clients. So, written consent. The therapists obtain written consent from clients to disclose information, with exceptions for family members receiving joint therapy. Confidentiality, there's limited disclosure. Confidentiality is limited under certain circumstances, such as when the client waives their right to confidentiality, or if there's a duty to report. For minors, consent must be given by a parent or a guardian and is required for treatment. Permission is necessary for informed release. Now, the legal framework, the laws in Nebraska are detailed and governed by the Nebraska revised statutes that outlines the rights and responsibilities of therapists regarding client confidentiality. So, a case study or scenario: a family comes to you for therapy, and it's based on their lack of ability to communicate properly as a family unit. So their teenage son reveals to you in an individual session that he's transgender. His father is a decorated service member and is very outspoken about his opposition to alternative lifestyles in the LGBTQ plus community. So the son is scared to expose himself for fear of physical retaliation based on his father's beliefs and past threats that his father would, quote unquote, extinguish his own children if they were members of such a community. But at the same time, the child asks you not to tell anyone. So the ethical dilemma that I find here is the breach of confidentiality versus disclosure of information. The breach of confidentiality based on the information that the father has previously threatened to cause bodily harm in this situation makes you want to maybe have a duty to disclose. Disclosure of information by reporting possible impending violent situation while also, quote unquote, outing the teenager without concern for creating additional issues or causing what would be the possible concern of his father harming him. So there's possible options to include in the treatment plan. One option is providing the appropriate information to law enforcement and CPS or Child Protective Services to have the teenager removed and placed in a safer environment. But then you have the risk of outing the teenager and the client to the parents, which in turn creates a deep and or permanent separation. The possibility of intervening in a possible deadly incident to feel freer and able to express himself without the fear of physical harm from family members. Now, option 2 would be to encourage the teenager to disclose the information to his family. So you would discuss different cultures, lifestyles, demographics to gauge the situation, provide resources and feedback for positive as well as negative reactions to the subject. But risks of creating an uncomfortable environment or causing the teen to discuss the situation before he's prepared can cause issues such as the lack of rapport or trust. The possibility of providing information or resources to assist the father and family to be more accepting and therefore create a more inviting and safer environment for the child to disclose the information would be a much higher probability, would create a more higher probability of acceptance, but you would have to have that possibility again of maybe outing the child who doesn't want to. So the best resolution and approach to this would be to ensure that the client understands and have been given copies of the consent form that they've signed at the time of their intake process. So based on my current status, situation at hand, in general, this situation that I created, I would document all the information very carefully from the individual sessions as well as any relevant information from family sessions. And then because I'm only an intern, even if I wasn't, I would consult with either my supervisor at this time or peers for assistance or guidance in the situation. I would ensure that if there were any individual sessions that are also taking place, that the family's aware that they don't overlap information. But it is advised that the individual not keep secrets or important issues from other members, and that the family sessions must be open and honest to be productive and successful. However, there are going to be some things that are going to be private or sensitive that they may want to keep to themselves. It is immediately vital that the therapist or counselor begin building rapport with the individual and the family as a whole, and this rapport building must continue throughout therapy counseling process and the treatment plan and beyond. it's very important to maintain that confidentiality. If that is broken, that trust is broken, and it can do more damage than good in most situations. So keeping those different codes and ethics and thoughts and everything that we have learned about confidentiality, that is the most important thing, because it is vital to so many other aspects and points of working with clients and having successful sessions and outcomes for these individuals. So I thank you for listening today, and I look forward to any feedback that you might have for me. Thank you so much.